entertain some time of public comment, but I have this to say.
Is there a mic, the microphone?
We can barely hear you.
Okay. I will entertain public comment, but I have this to say as a preamble. In public comment, we are not, it's at the chair's discretion. I will allow 3 minutes of public comment for new items. And I'll read this because on the advice of counsel, I'm supposed to let you know. The right of a member of a public to speak on an issue before a public body. Contrary to conventional thinking, the open meeting law does not authorize such a right. On the contrary, the open meeting law vests in the chair the exclusive authority to determine when a member of the public may speak. This discretion must be exercised in the context of the law. Hence, if a member of the public attempts to discuss a matter that is not on the posted agenda of the meeting, the chair must not permit that discussion. Here, it should be noted that insofar as the law makes no distinction between a member of the public and a member of the public body at an open meeting, a member of the board may only speak when recognized by the chair, and the chair has the legal responsibility to prohibit any discussion by a public official of any topic that was not placed on a posted or revised agenda that lists topics within the specificity of that the statute mandates. So with that, I will entertain public comment with regard to agenda items, and you have 3 minutes. Does anybody wish to participate in public comment?
What's the agenda? Is there a copy of?
The agenda items are the memorandum of understanding with the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, policy on public comment, policy on requests from outside agencies for agenda appearances, and action by commissioners.
And Lyme disease.
And Lyme disease task force update by Brenda Bowling.
I'm not sure if the memorandum with the chamber was relating to the commission study of the county structure or not. Is that on the agenda at all?
No, are you talking about the item with regard to the charge?
Yeah.
No, that's not. That's a different
Can I
thing.
give you our comments?
Could you identify yourself, please?
Okay, so
If you're going to speak, you need to identify yourself for the record.
Before, I would just like to say that we just had a message from Sheila Lyons. She will be here, but she is late. She's delayed in traffic. So, just so you know.
okay, so you wanted to submit a document to us?
Yeah, related
Okay.
to that.
So please identify yourself. Gary, are you representing the legal one?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'll accept the document.
Is it all right to read it? Or I just
It's not on
present?
the agenda today. Thank you.
After Sheila.
Okay, Mr. Ribner.
Preston Ribnick from Wealthy. Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
sir,
Yes.
I have difficulty hearing you just now because of this air conditioner in the back. Did I hear you correct to say that the chair is not required to let any member of the public speak unless it's on a topic on the written agenda, and that includes the other members of the commissioners and any other elected officials? Is that what you said? Because I couldn't hear it correctly. Could you repeat that and say it a little louder?
Contrary to conventional thinking, the open meeting law does not authorize the right of any member of the public to speak. That is at the chair's discretion.
Does that include the other commissioners as well? I couldn't hear you.
The chair is the person who is responsible for running the meeting, and it's at my discretion.
Thank you.
May I ask what has transpired since I was
We are in
a few
public
minutes late?
comment right now.
And what is the question? I read that, but I'm just...
I read that to the public.
So are you
I'm
not
enforcing
having
it.
public comment?
I'm inviting public comment for items that are on the agenda. Okay.
Ma'am?
Mr. Bibler.
Well, I guess that raises the obvious question, how to get items on the agenda. We have over 20 members of the public here who are interested in topics that they've tried to bring to the attention of the commissioners. Basically boils down to transparency, accountability, and oversight. And
Will you listen to respond to your question?
I'll try to just sum up. So the issue for us today here is oversight. because this is an elected body that has a certain statutory responsibility for oversight, and I guess I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think we're all, at least I am, and I sense others might be wondering what mechanism there is to be able to have this conversation, to bring our concerns to you, if it's your prerogative to ignore those concerns, and if it apparently seems to be your intent to do so. I'm wondering about how that is helpful, in terms of hearing your constituents, and what other avenue we might have to bring that to your attention.
If you wish to bring an item for discussion before and you want to address the commissioners, you may, by submitting a request in writing, indicating what the subject is, and I will consider it.
And are the commissioners able to add new items as new agenda items for new business after you finish your agenda?
No,
They can't add new items, that's it.
no, not according to the advice of the open meeting.
Under the open meeting law, and I think what Phil was reading was a memo we received from town council that regarding the open meeting law and how public meetings, not public comment, but public meetings in general. And it's become rather onerous for those of us who have been here a while to all of a sudden have to switch gears and change the way in which we do things. It used to be that you could take something up under discussion as a new item, but you can't do that now under the open meeting law. You have to, and it's all in the interest of transparency, so that the public knows that this is what the commissioners are going to talk about today. So we can't bring up topics that are not on our agenda, because there may be somebody out there who would like to participate in a discussion like that, but they wouldn't know about it if it wasn't posted. So we, even as individual commissioners, if we want something on the agenda, we have to let the chairman know in advance so that there's a 48-hour notice. The same with you. If you want to get on the agenda, you can contact the admin assistant.
Well, actually, you can contact me.
Well, or the admin assistant, either way, contact the office and say you would like to have this topic on the agenda for whichever meeting. But the agendas are posted 48 hours in advance, so you have to give yourself a little time. And then the admin assistant would let the chairman know if that's the route you took. And then the chairman would determine then what goes on the agenda. So that's really how it works. Because if you come and you bring up topics that are not on the agenda, then people who may be interested in that would not know about it. So we're trying to conform, if you will, to this new open meeting law. And it's been a little difficult, and I think we've gotten off track a little bit in the past by allowing more than just comment, but having larger discussions about issues that were not on the agenda.
If I may have 20 seconds, please, just to respond to that. I guess the only thing I would say is that we did not specifically ask that these items be placed on today's agenda, but we certainly have asked at past meetings in public and in writing that, and we have now reiterated more than one time our concern that the commission address several specific items relating to some of the adjuncts of the Barnstable County government. So I think it is a little shocking to find it absent from the agenda when I think it was clearly communicated the level of the public concern, and we did not use the specific words we wanted on the agenda for May 18th as this agenda item. So I think its omission is very troubling, and as you can see, there certainly was every expectation that we would be able to pursue this. And we were told in previous meetings, we promise we will address this, and here we are, and we're not really making any headway.
May I just make a comment here? This is on the agenda, policy on requests from outside agencies, etc., on public comment. We just received this yesterday, and I thought today we were going to be discussing how do we perceive public comment. I know what the law says, but the law gives discretion to the board. And although you are the chair, you represent the board. So I think that to announce prior to a discussion of how we have decided to proceed and what guidelines we adopt, not just for this particular issue, but for any issue going forward, that we would first have that discussion before we would exercise such across-the-board policy given by the chair.
Hence-
And that is my feeling on this. You are the chair. We have placed you as chair. However, I think that this reflects the board, and I think that if people are here for a public comment and the rules have somewhat changed and nobody was aware of that, I had questions about exactly what is public comment, and I thought we would have this discussion.
Hence, it was on the agenda for a later time during.
Yes, I understand it was
This
on the
is not-
later time, but so do we enforce something that hasn't been discussed as at the start of this meeting, or do we discuss this and say this is going to be the procedure from this point forward?
We will discuss it during the period of time it's on the agenda.
Well, then that's when we will discuss it.
You could get around it by offering to continue the topic at a later
Mr., you're out
meeting.
of order, Mr. Cooper.
Miss,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman from Brewster. My question is, first of all, in terms of public comment in written form, will you receive that and read that? And second of all, when is the appropriate time for public comment? For instance, it's on the agenda about public comment later. Will the public get to comment on that comment, or just
No, this
the
is
outside
the time for
agencies?
public comment.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. Mr. Rogers.
I guess my question is what constitutes comment and what is discussion? We were prepared to simply make a comment, not expecting any discussion, but simply a statement from the public or our organization, not leading to a discussion.
which was not on the agenda.
Public
Apparently
comment.
not, but I don't really know how to see the complete agenda. I did see there was to be a discussion on a new policy. And you mentioned a memorandum from of agreement with
Attorney
the Chamber
Counsel.
of Commerce, but I have I don't know
Are you
what
carrying on the
that
conversation here?
is, and whether that relates to the commission to study the county or some other
No,
aspect.
it's a memorandum of understanding with the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. We received and sent a draft, and we should have gotten some sort of feedback by now on that. That's why I put it on the agenda. In the instance that we had received comment back from the Chamber of Commerce, we'd be able to discuss it. Okay, Mr. Rogers?
So I don't really know what
Well,
it's about.
if we tell her what it is, it's related to what is called REDO, R-E-D-O, Regional Economic Development Office of the state. And it's monies that the state provides to regional economic development agencies to further their goals. And the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce has been the recipient of those funds recently. We're trying to enter into a memorandum of agreement where we can work together and share some of those REDO funds. That's what it's about.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Jerry.
So that there is no way, well, for the public to comment in advance of what you're going to discuss anyway.
This agenda was published 48 hours prior to the meeting.
So,
I didn't see all of that discussion.
We are
But if we did-
We are compliant with the open meeting law.
Right. Yeah, so
yeah,
I'm not going to take all your time.
no, take your time.
But is it appropriate to now present anything we want to about the open meeting law or question it?
Yeah, the open meeting law is on the agenda for
So
discussion
we
later on.
could right now
Yes.
bring
Yes.
comment.
Okay. Do you have something to offer?
No, I'm just concerned that this opportunity to express opinions will have gone away, whether sometimes there are issues in the community we would like to bring your attention to, and don't expect it to be a discussion with the county board
Yes.
at all.
And that is,
Excuse me.
If
You're
I-
not recognized. Yes.
excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
I'm not
I stand
recognizing you.
corrected.
I'm not recognized. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that we have been found by our council to be not totally in compliance with the open meeting law in meetings in the past. And so town council has reviewed on tape some of those meetings and has suggested to us things that we might be able to do to bring us more in compliance. So we are having a meeting with him next week so that we can iron these things out. in the spirit of openness, we have always encouraged people to come and say what they want to say. If you remember, a couple weeks ago, we had like an hour where all of you had an opportunity to say what you wanted to say. Well, that wasn't exactly in compliance with the open meeting law, according to council. So we're trying to sort these things out. And I hope that by the end of next week or the week after, that we will have our public comment policies in place so that everybody will understand what's appropriate. And you already know how to get on the agenda. If you want to get on the agenda, you just pick up the phone and call and say, I'd like to be on the agenda of such and such a meeting. And then you are contacted back to say, yes, it's okay, or no, it isn't, or could you wait another week, or whatever.
Okay.
So we're just trying to do a better job in everyone's best interest.
However, it is still the chair's discretion as to when you would be put on the agenda. And now, one last one, Mr.
Yeah, I
Rogers.
think we all can agree that we want Barnstable County government to work, but if dissent is stifled and questions are not answered at this meeting or at other meetings by CVAC or CLC, the officers of the county do more harm.
Okay, I'm going to have to
Good.
stop you and say that that is not an item that's on the agenda for today. Thank you very much. Public comment time is over. And now we can go to the next item on the agenda, which is the Lyme Disease Task Force update from Nicole.
Thank you very much. My name is Brenda Bolin. I chair the Cape and Islands Lyme Disease Task Force, and I brought a few handouts, of course.
Didn't you try to retire?
I'm working on that. I was talking with Commissioner Flynn just before I came in, and I said, I think I'm here for two things. So I want to just see if that's correct. One is to give you a little update on what the task force is doing, and the other is to initiate the nomination process to revive the task force, because in fact we are between membership groups now, and so as we have discussed in the past, we need to do this formally, obviously, and you have I believe a protocol for doing that. So what I'd like to do is just give you a little update about where we are now, and then I drafted sort of a press release, which just for your interest, and you obviously will change it as you see fit, but it would seem to me that that would be the way to let the public know that we're inviting applications. So what's in your packet is, we don't have to pay attention to all these things today, that's the good news. On the top page are the bylaws under which we've been operating since 1998. And the second page is the one I think I'd like to have you have a look at, and I'll run through this. One of my compulsions is to get things on one page when I can possibly do so. So what we have here is what I'm calling a thumbnail sketch of the work of the task force. So the first paragraph simply tells people who we are. So maybe just for the sake of the people in the room, I'll read this a little bit. Is that okay?
Yes, please do. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
This is the Cape and Islands Lyme Disease Task Force. The task force is an advisory body to the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment and the Mass Department of Public Health. Membership includes doctors, nurses, businessmen and women, scientists, patient advocates, and others. Administrative and staff support provided by the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension and the County Health and Environment Department. The foundation of our work is that of our county public health nurse, Deirdre Arvidsson, and our county entomologist, Larry Dapsis. We are very fortunate to have these two professionals now continuing the work of Rita Mitchell and Dave Simser. As you know, Rita Mitchell retired last year and Dave Simser died very prematurely. So this is a big change. These staff people really have been the rock behind what the county can get done in this tick program, and it has been significant. So I first would like to thank you as the county commissioners for appointing this task force and for encouraging the support for these professional staff members, without which we would be nothing. The task force carries out much of its work via subcommittee on which these staff members, plus Bill Clark, Director of Cooperative Extension, and George Hoyfelder, Director of the County Health Department, are key participants. This is how we have managed to function, and I think you'll agree that we've accomplished quite a bit in the last 12 years. And so I've listed some of the areas in which we've been most at work. Number one, public education. We have pamphlets, rack cards, wallet cards, and I've given you a sample of these. Some of you have seen those before. We have repellent information, and we develop guidelines, recommendations for the schools on how to handle ticks in the schools, children when they have a tick, and so on. And this is really big. Those guidelines were adopted by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and distributed to all the public schools. I believe that was a huge contribution. Plus, our staff have developed children's games and school materials, and as I mentioned, there are thousands of school children are reached annually during visits by the public health nurse. And also, Dave Simser used to contribute to those too, and it's been a very effective outreach on the part of the county. So much so, the schools, if they don't get a call, they call in and say, "Are you coming?" So when you think, when we started 12 years ago, there was nothing. There was no information when we started. So we've made, I think, great strides. Professional education. 2001 to 2008, formerly one of our busiest subcommittees. During those 8 years, when funding was available, this group annually selected a clinical topic, recruited physician specialists, and invited Cape clinicians. These forums were directed specifically to physicians, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants who received professional credits. Forums were also presented to other professional groups, and they were very well received. Another segment of activity, field research. The importance of the field research initiated by Dave Simser cannot be overestimated. His work centered on counting tick populations and reducing their success. Barnstable County has provided the Commonwealth with invaluable data otherwise unavailable. I just happened to be talking with a doctor up at DPH yesterday, and she said to me, "You know, we still hold the Barnstable County group as the ideal for what we'd like to be happening elsewhere in the Commonwealth." Legislation. Since 2005, when former Representative Shirley Gomes requested our assistance, we have had a subcommittee that has reviewed Lyme-related bills and submitted testimony on proposed legislation. In 2010, the first of these was passed by the legislature. Currently, there are no fewer than 5 bills pending that deal with Lyme disease related subjects. So that's kind of been an evolution. Over the years, since 2005, the legislature has had a growing interest in the issue of Lyme disease, and I'm sure that part of this is because Lyme disease is no longer located only on Cape Cod and the islands. It has spread to every community in the Commonwealth, and when you look at these bills, you discover that the legislators who are filing them are from places like Norfolk and the Berkshires. It's become a very big problem statewide. And having the legislators interested is really terrific, but it also keeps us hopping because it's a very complicated topic. They need help understanding it all, and lucky for us, we have people here and on the task force who've lived in this world and know this stuff, and we can be very helpful. And now we've developed a certain credibility up there, and we are called upon. So this is, I think, a significant role that we probably never expected when we started 12 years ago. The task force also participated, this was a few years ago, in revisions to the public health reporting form in an effort to facilitate increased reporting of Lyme disease cases by a physician. This is a big problem. Lyme disease is not usually a fatal disease. It can have fatal consequences, but by and large, the physicians have not considered a real high priority to report this. So it's generally agreed that Lyme disease is underreported by at least 10% and maybe 20%. Nobody really knows. So the DPH is in fact trying to make it easier for physicians to report these cases. So much is dependent on those data. And finally, the Cooperative Extension Service Office facilitates tick testing by providing mailing materials and information to those who may wish to have a tick tested for the presence of the Lyme bacterium. So those are the highlights that I wanted to present to you today, just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we're thinking about and working on. And I've also attached, we won't go through this, but I thought you might be interested in the summary of our last meeting where we discussed all those bills that I just mentioned that are on Beacon Hill.
Yep.
So there's a little summary there, and if you have any questions, I'd certainly be happy to try to answer them.
Brenda, thank you very much, and thank you very much for all the hard work you've done for Barnstable County. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Brenda, just to kind of update all of us on the testing for Lyme disease, is it still required that the tick be tested as well?
Oh, no, that's not a requirement.
I didn't think so.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question, because there's a lot of confusion about this. First of all, this testing of the patient, right? A blood test. There are 2 or 3 different kinds of blood tests. They're a bit controversial, they're complicated, and it's generally agreed that they have serious limitations. There is no definitive test for Lyme disease, which is one of the real biggies we would like to see happen. But it's really tough. The science is very tough. The biochemistry and the microbiology, the immune system, it is really a sticky issue, so that we do not really, at this time, have a definitive test for Lyme disease, and it's a frustration for everybody. Then there's the business of having the tick tested. If you have a tick embedded, and it's clear that it has taken blood, then you might want to have that tick tested, especially if it's a deer tick. The first thing every citizen should find out is how to distinguish between a deer tick and a dog tick. And the teacher never goes without, so I'm going to just ask you, everybody should have one of these. Tape it to your kitchen cabinet.
Let's remind us.
Incidentally, I just have to tell you that one of Dave Simmons' great contributions were these tick cards. And when we started out 12 years ago, do you know that we had laminated cards with real ticks on them that were prepared by a professor's graduate students in Rhode Island, and they cost $8 a piece. And we used to carry them around, and we would never let them out of our sight, because then he discovered he could copy those on a copy machine. Then he discovered he could scan them when the computer capability came along. And ultimately, we now have this, our most popular handout of all, this rendition. The coloration isn't perfect, but it's been very helpful. And we also have, of course, the rack card, which you will find in various places around the Cape, hopefully. And due to the genius of our agency head, Bill Clark here, we have found the money, I guess, to get these reprinted for this year.
Right.
This is really important. We started out with a fold-out pamphlet 12 years ago. We revised that 3 or 4 times and condensed it to this. So, as I say, there's a lot more information out there for people now than there wasn't anything 12 years ago. So we feel very good about that. Back to the tick testing. If you decide that first of all, if you remove a tick, save it. Don't throw it away. Save it. If it's engorged, and if you don't know what kind of a tick it is, you can bring it to the cooperative extension, and they can tell you what kind of a tick it is. Once they're engorged, they can be sometimes tough to identify. They don't look like the pictures on the card. So if you have reason to suspect that this tick might be a bad tick, in other words, it's carrying the bacterium, you can have it tested. However, you got to keep in mind that even if this tick comes back tested positive, it doesn't mean that the tick has passed that bacterium into you. In fact, if you get this tick off in good time, within the first few hours that it's on, it won't have had time to transmit the bacterium. But the good thing about having it tested, if you're really concerned, is that if it comes back negative, you know it's negative, because they do a special, it's a DNA enhancement technique that works in ticks. It works in ticks because the bacteria are concentrated. It won't work on your blood. At least not yet. So that's the difference between having a tick tested and having one's blood tested. So there are limitations to having the tick tested. It's also conceivable that you have been bitten by more than one tick, and etc. So it's a good idea. The UMass website tick program has a very good write-up about the pros, the merits, shall we say, of having them tested, and the limitations and expectations. And they have a good tick testing lab there.
Any other questions?
Yes. The other evening, late at night, there was a show on PBS about Lyme disease and ticks, particularly in the Northeast region. I don't know if you've seen it. I didn't see the whole thing. I think I fell asleep
Was this on the
before it
news?
was over. It wasn't on the news. It was a separate sort of documentary, a film on ticks, and it was different experts speaking about it and the evolution of this disease and how it came out of Connecticut, and Lyme. It was first appeared in Lyme, Connecticut, and that sort of thing.
I think you might be talking about Under Our Skin, which is a film, a documentary, fairly long documentary.
It was. That's why I didn't see the whole thing.
Yep.
But they did talk about the other point is that there are sometimes two other bacterias that are transmitted by ticks.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned
And they can compound the symptoms. They can show up in a different way, so you're being tested for Lyme, but you're not really looking at these other types of bacteria. So it's really almost a threefold. And if you get a tick that has all three, it's a bad, you're not in a good way. It's bad enough having one of those bacteria. So if you just wanted to mention that as well. Thank you.
We call those co-infections. And the two most common co-infections are ehrlichiosis, which now has a new name. They always keep confusing you, right? Anaplasmosis.
Right. With words I can't say.
And another one you may have heard about is babesiosis. Lyme disease and ehrlichiosis or anaplasmosis are caused by bacteria. Babesiosis is caused by a protozoan. So that disease requires a different regimen. It's treated with different drugs from the other two. And there are a couple of others, but those are the common ones. You're right. If the tick that bit you is carrying 2 or even 3 other diseases, the chances are you're going to be sicker. And and it's being more commonly used now. There is a 3-step test that tests for all 3 of those.
Okay.
I've forgotten what the name of that is. Does anybody here know what it is? There's a test where the doctor will order something and it has a name, and I've forgotten what it's called. But anyway, it tests for all 3 of the infections.
So at least people can be aware that there is such a test, and if they
Yes.
mention it in that term,
Well, and the other piece of that, too, is that the tests for babesiosis and ehrlichiosis are good tests. They're much more reliable than the Lyme test.
That's good to know.
And in fact, speaking of the co-infections, and we call this array of bugs, tick-borne illnesses. And so one of the things we've batted around occasionally is actually changing the name of the Lyme Disease Task Force to something like tick-borne illnesses. But you know what? Once you get into these long names, it gets lost on people.
Right.
So there are certain shortcomings to doing that, but we won't get into that today. But you're right. I mean, it's a broader subject than just the Lyme disease bacterium.
Right, and something everybody should be aware of.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, I have another question regarding the 5 bills that are before the legislature.
Yes.
What is the status of any one of those, and what can we do to help advance the progress of those bills?
Okay, good. All right. Here we are. I just got off the phone this morning just before I left the house on these, because things are happening fast up there. And if you blink your eyes, something else happens. Okay, the name you want to think about right now is Representative David Linsky. David Linsky, he's a new name to us this year. You know, we've been following these bills since '05, so what's that, 6 years? And all of a sudden, we learned about Representative David Linsky, who had all these plans. Well, it turns out that he has really just poured his energy into this. He chairs the Post-Audit and Oversight Committee, and they just produced a really important report. And at the back of your packet, second from the last page, there's a news release from Chairman David Linsky. Okay, that tells you about this report, and on the back it tells you where you can find a copy of it. Anyway, I think it's a very important report. At our meeting on Friday, we're going to have a meeting of our legislative subcommittee on Friday. We're going to go over the highlights of that report. Love to have you join us, anyone here.
When is it?
It's from 2 to 4 this coming Friday, and it's going to be in the conference room of the Cape Cod Commission building right down the hill here. That's the yellow building across from the post office. Okay, David Linsky has put his committee to work to produce this report, and they went everywhere to get the information. They really put a lot of questions to the Department of Public Health, so there's a lot of good information in this report, and I certainly learned something from it. And he uses that report to develop his rationale for the legislation that he has. That legislation right now is in the form of a budget amendment. And it's been passed by the House, and it's in the Senate right now. So I was calling to find out what the status of that was on the Senate side, and it's not yet resolved. They're still working on their amendments on the Senate side.
Okay.
As this summary report says, when we first discussed this amendment, we had a lot of questions about the ability of what the legislation proposes is the formation of a special commission that would look into a number of aspects of Lyme disease in Massachusetts. The problem is it doesn't have any funding. What a surprise! Well, so I met with Representative Peake and an aide from Senator Wolf's office, and they said, well, it's not unusual for a legislator to file legislation to establish a legislative committee, and then the following year go for the funding for it. And actually, as I read it very carefully, there are some things this commission could do without big bucks. So anyway, we think that it's a step forward. The DPH is in favor of it. So depending on what happens with these amendments, then I might come back and say, if you could send a letter to so-and-so and so-and-so. But we're not quite right there yet.
Excuse me, Brenda, is this part of what you're going to be doing on Friday?
Yes.
Discussing this?
Yes, we are. We're going to spend Friday discussing this legislation. The other bills, I want to tell you there's one we really want to support, and that is called the Speliotis Bill. The Speliotis Bill would mandate insurance coverage for patients who have been diagnosed with Lyme disease. This is huge. Last year, the bill that was passed is a bill that protects physicians who wish to treat aggressively. This gets us now, I could spend all day on this, as you can tell.
Right.
But, you know, the controversy in the medical community about physicians who are very, very conservative about using antibiotics, and they do not want to see antibiotics used long-term. Then the other group of physicians who say, look, long-term antibiotics are the only thing that we've found that can help these patients.
Right.
So the last thing I put in your handout, because I know everybody's interested in this, is an excerpt from an introduction to a book called Lyme Disease, The Ecology of a Complex System. It's not written by a physician, it's not written by a microbiologist, it's written by an ecologist who specializes in diseases carried by mostly insects, etc. It's a fascinating book. But what fascinated me even more is that this author, it's a brand new book by the way, this author started out his introduction by informing the reader about this, this polarization in the medical community. And I think it's one of the best and most clear explanations. So I thought you might be interested to have that.
Great, thank you.
So that's there for your bedtime reading. Where am I? I lost my... Oh no, it's the Speliotis bill. The Speliotis bill, we are going to enthusiastically endorse that. I talked with his office the other day, and it's in committee. It's in the Joint Committee on Financial Services, and they're awaiting a public hearing date. So when there's a public hearing for that, we will definitely draft language and participate. In fact, we've already supported it. It's been refiled several times. We've been supporting this bill since '07. So to us, that is the most logical follow-on to the bill that was passed last year. But the Linsky bill is the one that seems to have the horsepower right now in moving through the legislature. So we think that that's a step forward, that it keeps the momentum going, and it could potentially produce something, especially if they get some funding.
At this point, I guess we're supposed to ask you what's the main takeaway you want the public to have with regard to all of this.
Well, I guess we want to support our legislators and help them as much as possible, and help them hone these bills so that they will do the best job possible. For instance, there's another bill, I don't want to gobble up your whole afternoon, but there's another bill, for instance, filed by Jennifer Benson, who's from the western part of the state, that would establish a research institute at the UMass Medical School, and it would direct all of the assets to UMass. So a part of that is establishing a trust fund for Lyme disease studies, but it would all go to UMass. So we think it's great for the Commonwealth to have a dedicated trust fund, but that funding should be available to any researcher in the Commonwealth who wishes to develop a proposal to study some aspect of Lyme disease. We don't think it should be narrowly directed to UMass only.
And these are all issues for the committee on Friday?
No.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to ask them if they'd like me to change anything on this summary report, because after I wrote it up, I said, gee, I can use that. But
you'd also mentioned offline that you're looking for more members in your committee, right?
The task force it's time for the task force simply to be reappointed. We have not paid attention to terms, all right? We've been so pleased that people want to serve on this that we've not done that. However, after 10 years, people have dropped off. Some people have lost interest. Some people have left the state. And so looking at the formality of appointing an advisory body like this, it just seems clear that it's time to go right back and revitalize this with new people, and invite the people who've been on it to reapply if they wish to stay.
Okay. Are you doing that?
That's the next. Is it time to move to that now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You go to the next page after that summary report. I just thought I'd put a few words together, trying to think now, what if somebody's reading the newspaper and they find that the county commissioners are going to be reappointing members, what do they need to know? And so I tried to make it succinct. You may already have a template for this. So here we are, test run. At this time, the Barnstable County Commissioners invite applications/nominations. That's because a person may apply or someone else may wish to nominate someone, so that both of those, for open seats on the Cape and Islands Lyme Disease Task Force. First appointed in 1998, the task force is an advisory body to the Barnstable County, same language that you already heard, Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment and Mass Department of Public Health. In collaboration with the MDPH, the task force has made significant contributions in the areas of public and professional education, field research, and legislative efforts related to tick-borne illnesses. The task force meets approximately 3 times per year. If interested and/or for more information, please contact the Office of the County Commissioners. And I took that phone number out of the annual report. I don't know if that's the best one, and I figure we should offer people an email, but I'm not sure whose it should be. And I figured we ought to have a date by which applications should be received.
Okay.
So
I'm
walking through this, yeah.
I'm going to suggest that we take that, we add that appropriate information, and I guess we take the responsibility of publishing that public. I think this is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, as I walk through this though now, I see somebody reading the newspaper saying, gee, I'd really like to do that. And so they call this phone number. So who's going to answer the phone?
Well, actually, that's my number.
That's your number?
Yeah. So in other words, somebody will answer the phone.
Okay, so that person needs some information.
Right.
And I would also offer them the idea of sending people to me. I'm perfectly happy to receive inquiries if someone wants to, but I don't want my name on anything here.
Right.
I want this to be county commission. I'm sure you do too.
Well, what we can arrange to do is when we receive inquiries, we could forward the names of people and their interests to you for, let's say for
Yes,
opinion.
that would work.
That would work?
Yes, that would work. The other thing is that I will, once that's published, I will take the responsibility of sending copies to the present members or former members, all of those who've served on the task force, inviting them to say, yes, I'd like to continue or not. And the other thing is, I think what's going to happen is, you're going to receive responses from people who are personally involved with Lyme disease, either have it themselves or family, etc., etc. I think those people will be very eager to participate, perhaps. But we're going to have to do some recruiting. I have a list of... One of the things I've been very, very careful about when I talk with legislators is to clarify the fact that we are not a patient advocacy group, because they tend to blur that line, and understandably. So we need to have a broad membership with professionals on this. For instance, it would be great to have a school nurse. We've had a veterinarian, certainly MDs, and I have some suggestions. I'm going to try to recruit some people. Nurses, obviously, and we do need the patient advocates. We've always had patient advocates on the task force. Would be great to have a landscaper. We had a landscaper at one time, and a health agent, very important. Now, the number of people is not fixed. But when we initially started, we had about 20 people, which is pretty big. I don't think we need that many people. On the other hand, what happened is, and as you can imagine, these are really busy people. Try getting them together. What happened was that we would work with the people who could make the meeting, and then we would use other people as resource people. For instance, Dr. Labden, the veterinarian in Yarmouth, he's retired now, but he was one of our original members. He had vast experience with the dog vaccine. Very valuable. if he couldn't come to a meeting, we'd call him up. So he became a resource. So there are lots of flexible ways to take advantage of the expertise on the Cape, which is huge.
Right.
But
So the first thing is you want to sort of engage a group of people that might have an interest, and then maybe segment them into specific areas of interest so that you're making the best use of their, let's say, their talent.
yes, hopefully we'll have a number of people from different venues who are interested in serving, and that you, the county commissioners, with the help of us who know many of these people, can make very good appointments that will serve the Cape and Islands very well.
Okay.
See, I think there are people on the islands who would be interested in participating also.
Yes, sir. Question.
Okay, so if we can just get the procedure right, where we'll put something like this in the paper.
Yep.
We will have the phone number. You're saying that that's your direct line, or is that that's the direct line to the county?
If you look up in the book, it says the Barnstable County Commissioners phone number
Right.
is this number.
Okay, so
Yes,
that's this
that's
number
where I
here.
got it.
Yeah.
All right, so that is that number. So someone like Kara or somebody will be answering the phone, and they could take the information of the interested party. They could say, yes, that's a task force, and the person who could tell you more about that, I am going to contact, and they will contact you.
Good.
So is that
That's
is that
right.
about right?
I think
And
that's
that way, they're not giving out misinformation or some, whatever, and they will be directed to forward all of that information to you.
We probably would use either Mark's email or Kara's email.
Kara's
for that.
email there.
Okay.
Brenda, are you looking for maybe 13 people?
Yes, I think
15?
that's a good number.
13?
to 15.
So we could say that we're looking for 13 members, and that they would be appointed to staggered terms.
Yeah.
3 years, 1 year, some would have a 1 year, a 2 year, and a 3 year, maybe, so that you have some continuity across time, rather than having everybody appointed to 3 years and then appointing them all again.
Yep, that's really your call, I guess.
Yeah.
Is
We
that
can
the
work
way you
that
do it with
Yeah.
other advisory bodies?
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually they're staggered
And
terms.
an opportunity for reappointment, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not the whole board of all of
We
us.
don't want
Yes,
anybody to
yes.
come and go all at the same time.
Right. And when do you want to do this?
No.
When do you want to put this in? Like this week?
Yeah. Yes, I don't, yes, well,
we're getting
whatever
into
works
tick
for
season.
you, getting it,
Well, we're getting
Yeah.
in the beginning
Yeah.
of tick season, and when Dave Simpson was alive, this would be the time I would have him over to community TV to have a reminder of everybody that, tick season is
yes,
starting.
yes, yes.
And one of the, I didn't notice it here, but remember we had some concern about having these translated into the various languages?
Yes, there is a Spanish version, right?
English and Portuguese.
And Portuguese. And, I offered this one about the landscaping. I think it's the last brochure that Dave designed, actually, and really one of the very best. And people have lots of questions about how to inhibit ticks from migrating into their yards. And there are a lot of good clues here.
You didn't mention anybody from one of the tech schools, because I know that they have an active horticulture program at both the Upper Tech and Cape Tech down in Harwich. And when I've been over there talking to those folks, they do instruct their kids, to be
Yes,
watchful.
yes.
But I wonder if in our recruiting we might want to reach out to maybe some of the faculty.
Oh, well, they may very well be interested. Yes, I
You
think that's-
mentioned landscapers.
landscapers. Yeah. I think that's quite possible. Yep.
Did you have anything else for us?
No, I think I've achieved my goal here.
Brenda? Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Has something? Bill Clark.
Bill Clark.
Yes, hi.
Bill Clark, by the way, is a cooperative extension.
I just wanted to publicly thank Brenda for all her hard work. As you can see, she's done a lot, and she's been the chair of the committee since it started back in the late 90s. And
There'll be a new chairman.
I remember we went up to
Don't count on it.
then Senator Rauschenbach's office. I think it was 97. Met with him about getting funding from Mass Public Health, and Brenda's been cheering this ever since. She's been an unsung hero for Lyme disease education and research and legislation for all these years. So,
Well,
Thank you, Bill.
thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
With that, I want to thank you. And if you, I think that you might talk to this lady sitting beside you because she might be interested in joining up. So with that, I think we'll go on to the next point on the agenda. What we don't have right now, we don't have the needs action folder.
Right, we don't have that, and I want a copy of Bill's Bob Torres thing, so which I'll make. Give me your copy. It is on my email, but I just want a copy.
Do you want to take a quick,
We're going to take a quick break while I
so
go
that we
get
can
the...
get, we can get the copy and we can,
Okay, we're back from recess. The next item on the agenda is the...
Speak up, please.
Excuse me. The next item on the agenda is the discussion of the memorandum of understanding with the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. Now, it's my recollection that we had sent a draft copy of that, of our version, to the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. I had expected that we would have received some information back from them at this meeting. That's why I put it as an agenda item. But I don't see anything, either in needs action or from Mark Zielinski about it, nor is it mentioned over here. So I'm going to suggest that we continue that item and put it on next week's agenda in hopes that we would receive it by that time. I'm sure there's some other comments to make on it.
There was a back and forth between Mark and Wendy Northcross that did come up like very shortly after our meeting last week. I think it was not the same day, it was that morning, where he had put in that language that we asked him to do. He sent it to Wendy and she replied back, "That's fine as it's signed." So, I mean, it was almost as though, I mean, basically, I think what we said last week is we have no problem with this memo other than, you know, once you include that bit of language,
Reporting
then,
requirement.
then it can go forward.
we asked for the reporting requirement.
We asked for the reporting requirement, and with that in there, then we have no problem with it. And I think it sounded as though they agreed to that, and was it signed? And I never got another.
Okay.
Somehow there was the loop didn't come back to me again on.
I have a different understanding. My different understanding is that she was referring to the original one that she'd sent over, and was not referring to the draft that we sent back. So I was hoping that Mark would have been here so we could have clarity on that. But since he isn't here, I think that we should put this off till next week, and then re-put it on the agenda so that we can talk about it and approve it.
And I think that is a point. I mean, neither Mark nor Maggie are here today, and I just think in future meetings, one of them has to be here, or we change the meeting. I mean, I just think I've been watching a lot of selectmen's meetings. Everybody has their town administrator. Just for questions like this, I think it expedites the matter.
Well, I think that we do need to have some agreement from the EDC and the chamber before we agree to it. So I think requesting after today's meeting through Mark that he put it on the agenda next week if we have agreement.
Okay.
Of both the other two parties to the agreement,
Right.
which would be the chamber and the EDC.
Okay, and then that's about all we could do on that right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see, the next item is on...
Policy on public comment.
Oh, thank you. Okay. The policy on public comment, we have received all of us have received a document from Attorney Troy in regard to this, and I believe that it gives a lot of clarity to this. At this point, I'd like to have your opinion as to your response to this memo. You've all had a chance to was sent you yesterday, I think.
Well, it was just sent yesterday, and I did not really receive this until last evening. So sometimes it's better to read it two or three times.
So would you prefer that we wait until next week to discuss this?
Well, I did read it
Go ahead, Pat.
yesterday, but I think what I had said was that we need a policy on public comment. We don't have one, and we should have one. Every board should have a policy. And I
cannot hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can talk really loud when I want to. What I had said, I'm used to a microphone, so.
Where are them?
Well, not yet. But anyway, I had said that I would be willing to draft some sort of a policy on public comment because every board should have a policy on public comment so that both the board and the public are clear about what the policy is. In the interim to agreeing to do that, we now have a much broader memo from our council, very explanatory about the open meeting law and things that we should do, both how we conduct the meetings, but also how we conduct public comment. So I would defer to meeting with council and having them prepare the policy rather than any one of us doing it, because the open meeting law is really kind of complex, and there are various opinions on it. You have the Attorney General's office now has the compliance responsibility for the open meeting law. It used to be the district attorney. Now it's the Attorney General. And then you have, the other piece, which is the public records law. There are certain things in there regarding privacy and other sorts of things. So I think that any policy we have should best be developed by town council. So I'm suggesting that we ask our council to please develop for us a very brief policy on public comment so that we know and the public knows what the policy is.
Yes.
Well,
That's,
Bob goes through actually sort of explaining, and I quickly tried to absorb this and sections of the open meeting law last night by the guide of the Attorney General. And, what he's talking about here is what are the responsibilities, what are the responsibilities of the chair? The new meeting law really, what he's stating here first is that the public and those that are members of the elected public of the board are, there's not really a distinction made between them, between the members of the public and public officials. And in declining of making that, it's the law of the meeting is applicable to anyone who attends the public meeting. So this means that the procedural rules that are put in place, and as Pat says, that we should probably have these rules. And then it talks about the responsibility of the chair and that there is a burden on the chair, but it also says what is, not only posting it correctly and making sure that topics, but it says that you have to reasonably anticipate what will be discussed at that meeting. And in light of what we've been going through in the last several weeks, I think that it's reasonable to say that you can anticipate such discussions will come up so that they should be recognized, and also that if you find that something is going to be discussed and it's after the meeting has been posted, that you have to, it's your responsibility to make sure that that's been sent out. So it's not as though nothing can ever be put on the agenda after it's been posted. It's just that there's been a reasonable attempt to make sure that that's been put out into the public as well, and put on websites and that sort of thing. So to me, it's not clear that there's absolutes here on that.
There's one paragraph that does say, if a topic is discussed that is not on the posted or revised agenda, as you suggest, this constitutes a violation of the open meeting law.
Right.
And the chair of the meeting is legally responsible for the violation. So
Right.
there's a lot of responsibility placed on a chair.
As well as
to
anticipating what may be discussed, as well as knowing exactly what will be discussed, and seeking out, are these topics going to be discussed, and are we going to have room on there, and how are we going to handle that portion of the meeting?
At this point, I think the Pat suggestion is well taken, and that we should have the advice of county council with regard to policy, because it's clear to me that in order to meet, as I understand this document, that I have a responsibility to make sure that I stick exactly to the agenda and not deviate from it at all, and that regardless of what I might anticipate or what I might have heard, the responsibility is that since it was not posted as an agenda item, that we would not, that we are not able to discuss it as this document points out.
Well, I agree with that that's sort of how it sounds, but I don't think that there are absolutes in such a way. I think that there is room in this document to enhance transparency for the public, and not and also public's participation and public's comment.
Right.
And I don't think that means that by adhering to the letter of the law that is stifled. So there has to be a middle ground here. And I don't agree with everything. I mean, how our interpretations can be two different interpretations of one thing. And I think we all want a transparent government here, and I think we all want to be able to have the public feel that they are welcome. And, you know, there's times that we just might not agree with them, but that is their right as the public to come and speak their mind, and we need to address it.
I think that I would remind you that under the advice that that I'd received, that the right of public to speak on an issue that the right of a member of the public to speak on an issue before a public body, contrary to conventional thinking, the open meeting does not authorize such a right. And I think based upon the conversation that we're having, I think we would do well to stop right now and get the advice of county council with regard to a policy.
Yes, because obviously we're interpreting it in slightly different ways, not totally different ways. I understand why they're doing this. There are cases when there's disruption, there could even be violence sometimes in the public. You have to have some control over your meetings. That is when that applies. But the other, even though that the word chair and the principle of responsibility is the chair, that's a broad interpretation of that. The chair, in this case, is the chair of this body. So therefore, it is the body as a whole. And I just like to make sure that as we go forward as a body, that we are all taking responsibility, and we can't just say, that wasn't us, that was... Say if there's a question, not if just you, if any of us were chairing, and there was a procedural question, and a matter of maybe the public feels like this has been avoided, squashed, whatever the case may be. And I'm not saying that any of this is being stated, but if that happens, that not only is going to come before, that if there's a complaint and it's being investigated, the other two members can't say, we're not responsible. That was the chair, whether it be me or Pat or you. And I don't think that is as clear. That is what that means. I think that the chair is the agreed upon voice of the body, and that we are all responsible in the ultimate end of the law. So those are things, I think it's a broad statement, but I think it really does encompass the board as a body, not just the chair.
We're in disagreement.
I know we are.
I would point out to you that tonight at Barnstable Town Hall, there is a training session on open meeting law, and perhaps I certainly have signed up to go to it. I certainly would raise that question again.
Yes.
Well,
absolutely.
I have another suggestion too, that when we do get a policy and we read it, and let's say we have questions about it, or we may not necessarily be in agreement, we can always refer it to the Attorney General's office and say, look, you're the enforcement agency here. This is the policy that's been provided to us. We have concerns about it. We don't think it really meets some of the objectives that we want to be able to accomplish through our public meetings. And so please give us an opinion. That is another option if there's certain concerns about it.
And if I may make one other statement, just because you are backed by the law doesn't always mean that procedurally or even in some ways ethically, that it means that you have to go exactly by that. I think there's discretion of doing just the right thing, not just what is backed by the law.
I would suggest to you that the onus of following the law does not allow that kind of latitude. And I would suggest to you further that we've already, I think...
That is where we will have that discussion.
Okay. We also had something that I think that is basically part of this whole conversation, and I don't think we need to really, go on that further, unless you have some questions on it.
No, I think both of these should be referred to council to
Right.
develop the policy.
Okay. So with that, let's see what else we have here.
We have the summary of actions.
Summary of action. Do you have any questions on the summary of action?
I have, could I bring something up? I have, some concerns. I know that next week we are meeting, to discuss, CVEC and our relationship with CVEC and our relationship with CLC and where, the commissioner's authority comes in on those things and where it doesn't. It's part of the county, but yet it's not part of the county. So, very similar to Cape Cod Commission, and yet we have some authority over the Cape Cod Commission, so I'm not sure where our authority is here. And that's where I am at a standstill, and I've asked for this clarification going forward. Now, there have been requests from the public that we stand up in regards to the DPU question. And, if I'm all about process, really. I have no honest feeling about the merits of the particular project that's being discussed, one way or the other. As long as everybody's been heard and everything is going through the channels, so I am not out to stop the next step in a legal process for any group. However, somehow we are connected to this process, and whether it's financially, it is now. Bill, I just want you to hear me out before you have all your prepared statements, and we have representatives on that board, and there's county staff that is there. They are our designees. We have given them the powers to go forward on behalf of the county's interests. Now, not understanding all of the parameters and all of our roles, I just want to have that clarified before these votes go forward. And I'm seeing, since Maggie did direct me to the CVEC, and there is information on the CVEC, not Cape Light Compact, that CVEC has its own website where you can find, about it and its establishment and that sort of thing. I happened to look on the calendar, and I know that this discussion is going to be on the CVEC agenda tomorrow. And had I known that a week ago, I would have really pushed to have had that clarifying discussion today and made sure that it was already sometime between last week and tomorrow morning. And that didn't happen. So I'm feeling in a position where there's requests from the public upon us, and I still don't have a clear understanding of what my role is to be able to say, this is the way it is. And I just need to have that understanding. So I'm uncomfortable about tomorrow's meeting and our relationship in that meeting. So I feel unfortunate that we haven't had this cleared up since there's weeks that have gone by. And I think I would like to not only discuss that, but other things in executive session at some point when we have Maggie and Mark here. But I do not want that discussion to go beyond next Wednesday. And if there's attorneys that can't be available, I still want that presentation, because I need that understanding. And I think that the public wants to have that clarification. And you know what? And then everybody will understand everybody's role. And that's all that I'm requesting, is what is our role? And otherwise, let the process go forward as long as I understand where I am in that process.
I believe that Maggie sent you the memorandum understanding, the amended and restated intergovernmental agreement.
We can't hear you, sir.
I believe that Maggie sent you the amended version of the intergovernmental agreement, the memorandum of understanding or membership obligation that began the Cape and Vineyard Electric Co-op, and I believe I sent you this statement CVEC was formed out of a strategic planning process commissioned and undertaken by the compact to develop projects and enter into long-term power purchase and other agreements. CVEC has expressed statutory authority to do some things which compact members could not do at the time. CVEC's founding purpose is to develop renewable energy projects and otherwise procure generation and generation-related products. The compact is a municipal aggregator and serves the complementary purposes of arranging for retail power supply, consumer advocacy, and energy efficiency. CVEC seeks to finance and develop such projects and to provide generation to its members and the compact. That's the relationship of the two.
That still does not give me an understanding of where we are here. Of where does the county fall in that? And where does the authority,
Those are
there's
two
much-
regional boards. There are 21 members of the Cape Light Compact. They are the ones that oversee and formulate the Cape Light Compact policy, and they are governed by the operation agreement, or the intergovernmental agreement, which formed the Cape Light Compact.
I understand, but just as we have, you're the first to say we have some authority over the Cape Cod Commission. I want to know where our authority and our connection lies. Is it just is it just that they have their municipal payroll go through us? What is it that is our connection and our responsibility to that? That doesn't tell me that.
I'm the appointed
And
member.
I understand you're the appointed
You have
member.
appointed me to represent you, the commissioners on the Cape Light Compact.
And I just want to have
a
an
vote.
understanding what, and Bill, I'm not questioning anything that you're doing, and I'm not questioning any of our employees. I am not here to suggest impropriety. I am here to ask for a clear understanding of what that representation means for the rest of the board and the county. I understand it on the Cape Light on the Commission. I understand our representation on the cooperative, the Children's Cove, the Human Services, the Arts Foundation. I'm not sure of our responsibility and our onus on this partnership. So that is all I've been asking, to have a clear understanding. We're affiliated with it, and yet we have no control. So I don't understand what that means. And I don't understand all of those details. I've asked for them. It's been put off. I asked Mark a month
You have them
ago.
now?
I have asked Mark, hear me out, a month ago for this information. Yes, well, we'll do this presentation. And it was not put on. And then it was, last week I brought it up, well, we couldn't do that today because we had other things scheduled on the agenda. Well, that was a week ago. Those things could have been changed. However, that's okay. I let it go. Now I see on their calendar the things, their motions going forward. I just want to have an understanding of where we are here, of what our relationship is on those actions, if any. And then all can go forward. I'm not out to stop anything. I'm not out to, I have no feelings about it. I just want to know where our role is in the process.
Okay, you have a copy of the intergovernmental agreement. You have a copy of the membership arrangement. You have my statement with regard to the relationship between the two of them. I suggest that you review that, and then when we have this conversation with
Right.
the attorneys next Wednesday,
Right.
perhaps they can provide extra clarity. But I will assure you, as your representative on the Cape and Light Compact, that I am operating within the article, policy, and purpose, which was signed off on by a board of county commissioners as a member. There are 21 member towns in the Cape and Islands and a member from the Barnstable County Commissioners. And I represent one vote on that.
Right.
I happen to be serving as chair right now because I was elected to do that by that board. However, my authority with regard to that board is clearly outlined in the intergovernmental agreement, and all of the votes that have been taken have been consistent with this intergovernmental agreement. If there were a variance of a vote that was different than the articles of the purpose of this organization, I certainly would have brought it to your attention and would have asked for clarity with regard to operating outside the reins of the agreement. The Cape Cod Commission is authorized by specific legislation, not unlike this, in terms of authority. This authority is one that is a regional organization that, and one of the complaints of our regional organizations have been that the concern is that the individual towns that become members of a regional organization would lose their sovereignty. So, in this instance, the sovereignty remains with the membership, and we participate as a voting member.
That's all well and good. All of this came to me last night, or yesterday afternoon. By the time I was able to read it, it was very late last night. I could not get through it all. And just as, in the past when we got a little update or bullet notes to a certain ordinance, we didn't want to take it up because we had just gotten that at the last minute. So I do think that this deserves
It wasn't on the
conversation.
agenda. You asked a question for clarification. I've given you that.
Yes.
We are intending to discuss this as an agenda item, probably in executive session next week.
That's fine.
I have another item. And this isn't an executive session item, but I think that as a county, as a regional government, we should have some sort of a plan, or I hate to call it a policy, but a plan for, or a notification of how the public accesses public information from the county. And I'm thinking in terms of if somebody wants to know something about the Cape Cod Commission, they can go on the website. Well, what's on the website that is going to be helpful to people? Probably it's good, from the Cape Cod Commission, I would imagine. They do a pretty good job, I think, with their public information. But I think as a county, we should do that too. And we should have a website that's clear, that's easy to access, that has links, so that when people go on it, if they want information on wastewater, they can go to a link on wastewater. So I think in terms of accessing information, that's important. And the other thing is how we produce and release public information. Even if it were like a press release, maybe there are times when we should be issuing press releases on certain things. To keep the public, not just, it's great to have this, believe me, I think it's great that the meetings are televised, because, people can, they're streamed and whatever else. But I think that we ought to be cognizant of the fact that when there are certain decisions that have been made or will be made, that we have, that we understand and recognize the fact that we want to release some of this information, and maybe we want to do it in the form of a press release. So I think following on our whole public discussion that we're going to, not public information or public meeting discussion we're going to have, we should also talk about the fact about how information is accessed and released to the public.
Right.
I think it would be good to have that.
If I can, I think what you're referring to is the note we got from Therese Martin.
Yes, the email.
The email that we got from Therese Martin. And now Therese Martin, here's another person who also had trouble accessing different documents that have been told that has been provided and here's one of our delegates, and also, a techie savant. So she's always pushing techie savant stuff anyway. However,
are those two words?
It's a new phrase.
So
that's what we'll call her if we ever get her in here. But anyway, she suggested that there's an easy way to make sure that this is all done, and maybe these types of things can be done on one page of a website, where and then if there are changes to open meeting law, or we have adopted a policy that's going to go forward, there's an alert put on that to the public saying, future, this is how these meetings are conducted. If you want to come and speak, these are the the different rules, these are the things you have to do, or these types of comments can be allowed in open meeting. However, I think it's, we've all said this, we can do a better job in communicating with the public, and I think that maybe we should get some advice from some of our, from at least one delegate who can she had lots of good suggestions, and I thought that we might want to create something like that and have someone responsible for updating it and keeping us up to date as to what meetings are out there and to, what we need to be aware of.
And I think we're only successful as a regional government to the degree to which our citizens of the county are informed. You know, if they're really not informed, then we're not going to be successful as a regional government.
Right.
So I think that we should take a really serious look at information and how information can be accessed and how it is produced and released.
How should we start?
Well, gee, you know,
Well, how we
right
can-
now, I hadn't gotten down to the nitty-gritty aspects of it, but I thought Teresa Martin's email just actually really got me thinking about the fact that we do not really, as a general rule, release information. Our mindset isn't in releasing information.
Well, even if that information
Important information that
available,
people need to
it's
know.
hard to
Yeah.
to get. I mean, you know, once you're told the
Organized.
layers of clicking down to here, there's where you find it. But it's not readily accessible. It is also, how do we start? We answer questions when we're asked, even if we're asked those questions 100 times. We are public elected officials, and that is our job, to promote that transparency and honesty and dialogue. And I think that our job is to foster that and to make the public feel that they have had satisfactory answers. They may not like the answers, but those, at least they have been given that information and not a feeling of being dismissed. And I have felt that way. We've been very conscious of this with the Water Collaborative. There are groups that, you know, are against, you know, they have a certain agenda, they're against things. And, you know, I have been very adamant that we bring them into the process as opposed to saying, enough. It's doable. It takes more work. It takes more time, but that's our job. And that's how we
Well,
start.
getting back to the issue of communication and information sharing, I think that, would you want Teresa to come in and talk to us?
Yeah, I think that if she has some good suggestions, we should hear them and then consider how we'd like to implement them.
Okay, well, why don't we extend that invitation, and perhaps today during our
The assembly
reporting at the assembly, perhaps we could sort of
Well,
put her on the spot.
I don't know that we should do it that way,
Yeah.
but maybe just
Yeah,
sending an email
just
to
talk
her
to her.
and saying, we
She
should,
could just come
I'll
in and
give her a
talk to us.
call.
would you be interested in doing something
Even if she
like
just
that?
wrote something up with suggestions, I mean, that would be a
I
first
think
step.
Just given the fact that, she's already expressed an interest, I think, in my opinion, we might benefit from her visiting with us.
Right.
And we could perhaps get more out of let's say, a conversation with her. So, since we have a fairly busy agenda next week, why don't we
Right.
plan within the next couple of weeks to ask if she would be available to come in and speak to us. I know that she said that she puts Wednesday as her day at the county, so perhaps we could schedule around her availability to come in. So I will call her.
And one other thing, okay, well, that's not even up there yet, so.
Well, the other thing I wanted to say was that you did a really good job with the Smarter Cape Cod Summit.
She did a
She
wonderful
really
job.
helped put that together, and I thought that speaks very well of her abilities.
Absolutely. I think she did a wonderful job, and it was her credit, but, that everything went as smoothly
There
as
are
it did.
some hands in the audience.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
we don't-
Well, you're going to decide not to just ignore that?
I'm not recognizing it. Public comment time has passed.
Would the chairman entertain comment on this topic?
I'm not entertaining any public
That is
comment at all.
discretion.
I don't feel comfortable with that. Well,
We'll have this conversation with the attorneys next week, and you can go to the the training session on open meeting laws.
Can't hear you.
We will have this conversation as we've scheduled for next week. Is there anything else? Have you reviewed the summary of action?
Yes.
Are there any questions?
I'll move approval on items 1 through 23 on the summary of items.
I second.
Okay. Are there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is a vote. Okay, we now need to sign this. I don't believe we have anything else on our, do you have any reports to make on your activities?
Yeah, I'm sure I do, but I can't think of them right now. Pat, you go ahead if you have anything.
Well, we all attended the summit, so.
And that was
so-
last week, right? So we already talked
So
about
we've
that last
already,
week.
yeah, we've already mentioned that.
Yeah.
And,
You were at the Selectmen's Association meeting
yes.
on Nantucket.
Right?
Did you attend that as well, Bill?
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Was that good?
It was very good.
Okay.
There were probably 25 selectmen there.
And was Congressman Keating?
Yes,
Yeah.
he came and he had a lot to say.
I'm sure.
I mean, you know,
Probably
but he
very
spoke.
similar to what he
Yeah,
said.
no, it was
Yeah.
good. It
Yeah,
was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I regretted I couldn't see that. Wasn't able to do that, but I had, you know,
Did you have anything else?
I just feel that there are hands in the audience, and if there's a person who would like to have something to say, I think that we should recognize that.
No, I would agree.
Do you disagree?
It's my call.
He's the chair.
Okay, I think that's, we've had a vote for this. I believe it's, with no further business, I'll entertain a motion to go into recess and reconvene over the assembly at 4 o'clock.
Not hear you.
I'll entertain a motion that we go into recess and reconvene at the assembly at 4 o'clock.
Is that in the executive session or open?
No, there's not going to be an executive session.
Are you do not want to recess?
Are you going to entertain that motion?
Well, I'm not making the motion. No.
That we recess?
Right.
What further business do we have?
In the further business?
I don't have any further business.
I think that there's further business, though.
Well, what is it?
I think it's the business of the public.
I believe that the instructions that I have is that I cannot entertain any communication from the public beyond public comment, nor can I enter into any discussion with the public because it's not allowed on the agenda. We do not have public hearings. This is a meeting, not a public hearing.
There is no indication that there's going to be a debate. There could be a
Again,
statement.
Again, I will use my discretion. and
Okay,
not
you can use your
allow-
discretion. I disagree with that discretion, and I think that,
What's that sign?
I don't think it's, I don't think it stands correctly in light of what we promote as far as transparency and openness.
I'll pass those over here.
Yep. I find this, I find this uncomfortable, and I find this is not exactly
You're
what
out
the
of
law
order.
states.
You're out of
I am
order.
out of order. I believe that I am a member of this board. And I am stating that I would like to recognize people. I am making a request to the chair that we recognize the people with their hands up, and I am making that request.
I do not honor that request.
Then this
Wait,
is
there you
absurd.
I do not honor that request. If you want to talk to these people, you go outside and talk to them.
I don't think that that's serving the interest.
Well, then I think, Mr. Chairman, you ought to declare that the commissioners are in recess. If you're not going to recognize the people that
Okay.
are talking, then you
I'll
need to
declare that we are
declare
in recess.